You're watching the KGP Pre-Game Show, live from the KGP Studios in downtown Cambridge, Ohio. Your source for the latest local sports highlights, interviews, and information. Brought to you by And now, let's go live to the guys in the studio.
Hello, we would like to welcome you once again to the KGP Studios here in beautiful downtown Cambridge for this week's edition of the KGP Pre-Game Show. And can you believe it? Tomorrow night, week 10 of the high school football season. And it's hard to believe 12 weeks ago, we wasn't sure we would even make it this far. But we're here, and we're excited to bring another show to you this week. I'm merely Tom Strasser, once again joined by my partners in crime and my sidekicks. Got Hammer and Heath Dawson hitting cleanup for us once again, and always leading off and setting the table for our show, none other than Darren McCullough, Dean Train. And fellas, we got a big show as we look back at week 9. We'll discuss the Cambridge-Marietta game and look ahead to the Bobcats regular season finale. It won't be against Meadowbrook, and that's a good thing because of Meadowbrook advancing with a victory. They're now in the Final Four of Division 4, Region 15. They'll take on St. Clairsville this Saturday night at St. Clairsville, and we will look back at their big victory over Galley Academy to get to the Final Four of their region. Plus, Buckeye Trail had a big rivalry win over Shenandoah last week, and they prepared to take on Caldwell tomorrow night in Old Washington. And we will talk with the Buckeye Trail Warriors head coach, Donnie Kearns, as he will visit our set here as we come back for more of the KGP Pre-Game Show after we thank our sponsors who have been with us all year. Buffalo Wild Wings, Cons, Simple Windows and Doors, Muskingum Valley Health Centers, John Valentine Insurance Agency, and Basic Systems. So thanks for joining us for this week. And when we come back, we'll talk to the head football coach of the Buckeye Trail Warriors, Donnie Kearns, after this timeout. Welcome back to the KGP Studios here in downtown Cambridge, Ohio for this week's edition of the KGP Pre-Game Show, once again sponsored by Basic Systems, John Valentine Insurance Agency, Simple Windows and Doors, Muskingum Valley Health Centers, Cons, and Buffalo Wild Wings. We thank our sponsors, and whenever you visit their businesses, be sure to thank them for sponsoring the KGP Pre-Game Show. In our first segment tonight, we're going to talk a little Buckeye Trail football. And we're honored to be joined by the head football coach, Donnie Kearns. And Coach, we'll before we look ahead to your big game tomorrow night against Caldwell, let's look back after you lost to Afrocentric, a heartbreaker in the playoffs, a game I don't want to bring up bad memories, but you never trailed in regulation. You led or were tied the entire game. They got it to overtime. You lost. Then you find out the next day you're playing the Zeps. Kind of take us through that. And was that kind of a pick-me-up to not only have another game to play, but a rivalry game that you no longer get to play?
Yeah, we knew if the Afrocentric game went bad, that we were probably going to play Shenandoah. We really look forward to that. We would love to play Shenandoah every year. We thought we've had the opportunity to get them on every week too for a while, but it just hasn't happened. So hopefully, in the future, I think our community would be really happy if we played Caldwell, Shenandoah, and Barnesville. I think they want them games. So the community was fired up for the Shenandoah game.
And before I turn it over to my partners in crime with their hardball questions that they're going to bring to you, how long did it take the guys? Did it help that it was Shenandoah as far as getting, kind of putting that tough loss, the Afrocentric, behind them? Like they were locked and loaded and had put that game behind them.
Monday, I honestly did. I kind of had a good feeling about us, how we would play on Monday after we met with the kids. They were fired up, ready to go. Here's the thing: they missed 2 games throughout the year, so these kids want to get as many opportunities as they can. And like I told them, especially the seniors, hey, it's not like you can just play a pickup football game. Next year at this time, if you miss it, take advantage of this right now, and they did.
I want to start with, we talked off the air, the man, the word was going to call him that, Connor Proskarich. Talk about a kid who has just stepped up and, with Franco Rome being hurt, has just stepped up and taken control. Friday night's win, 40 carries, 271, 3 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, 5 of 9 passing, 109 yards and a touchdown pass. The last 2 games, he's had 81 carries for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. There's a lot of people who'd love to have that for a full season, let alone 2 games. And he led the team with 5 tackles, with 1 for a loss Friday night. So you talk about just how awesome of a kid he is, and really just coming up, and he's officially my Hard Hat Lunch Pail Award winner for the 2020 football season, because when you're getting hit that many times, carrying it that many times, that's impressive to say the least.
I'll tell you, he's a tough dude, and that's really the only way to describe Connor, because he's a good athlete. He's not overly athletic. He's not overly fast. He's not overly strong, but he is just a tough dude, and you have guys like him, and they're fun to coach. He's been a blast to coach because he's a competitor like I am, and we just mesh really well. I did have to text his parents or I texted Connor and his mom that evening just to make sure that they weren't going to try to get me for child abuse. That's a true story.
I wondered if you were going to get him a gift certificate to Jacqueline's Day Spa for Christmas.
He deserves that. He does.
That's right. That's 81 carries. That's in 6 days because you played Saturday night to Friday night.
Awesome?
So that was something I had not seen, I don't think, ever.
And you know what? He never whined about it. He never whined about it. He loved it. So I talked to him this week. I said, hey, what do you think? He said, Coach, I'll carry the ball 40 more times if you want me to.
Well, the last couple of weeks, obviously Afrocentric game not going the way you wanted as far as the scoreboard, everything else, it lined up. But, we've talked over the years, one of the things that you like to do is control the clock. And, against Afrocentric, you had a 10-minute advantage on the clock. The other night against the Zeps, you had the ball for 13 more minutes than what they had it. Talk a little bit about how you guys have been able to get back to that as the season's progressed, and getting back kind of more into the kind of offense and the way you like to, construct the game.
Yeah, I like to play defense with our offense. That's kind of my philosophy. Mm-hmm. Is if they don't have the ball, they can't score. And I love the fun and gun stuff. I seen Meadowbrook on Saturday evening, and I'd love to do it. Right. But we're not built that way. But we're built pretty good to do what we do.
Right.
And that's what we're about. We want to come out and pound the ball and control the clock. I guess it's a little bit of Jim Tressel style. Right, there's 2 ways to skin a cat, and this is the way we have to do it this year. In the future, I think we're going to be able to sling it a little bit, but right now we're going to run the football at you. Why not with our line? Our offensive line absolutely loves this. This is what they crave it, man. You think a lineman wants to sit back and pass block? They just want to bury you, and that's what our line does. They're good.
They've done a good job, when you look at the running backs that they've had behind them, being able to block the last couple of years, and now add push carriage to the mix, of course.
Absolutely.
So
we love it. We love pounding the football, and that's what we're going to do.
And also, football, it's kind of an outsider's look now. You're kind of like an outlier because everybody's now everything's spread. You got 4 or 5 wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of like back in the day when teams had to prepare for a Navy or an Army with their triple option. It's a lot different than everybody else. With you guys with the wing T, people have to prepare for something different that week, and that's a big advantage for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that we run is a wing T blocking scheme. So, and I credit John Kelly for that, and Keith Wakefield. They gave me a lot of good stuff. So everything that we block is wing T, but we just put it in different formations. And we were running quarterback buck sweeps out of empty sets. I don't know that Coach Kelly would have ever, got that crazy, but you know what? It worked for us. So, our linemen have to know a few things to block, and they do a good job at it.
Mm-hmm. The other night, you guys, actually the first quarter, you're up 8-6. You have a big second quarter and go up 24-6. Walk us through a little bit about that second quarter and kind of what kind of changed the tide there a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you the play that changed the game, and it goes unnoticed. And I told him is Tyler Dodd had a big tackle on fourth and inches in the first quarter, and that changed the momentum because they scored. We went down and scored. They were driving right down the field to score again. And that tackle, and we kind of never gave the momentum back. But the second quarter is kind of where we took over. They pinned us deep, and we had a 99-yard drive. And
impressive.
And it was, there was one big pass play to Shane Smith, and then the rest of it was kind of on Connor's legs. And, I say Connor's legs, but it was on our linemen's backs too. Our linemen they craved it. And we got the ball back, I think, one other time. And we were content going into half 16-6. We were kind of happy, because we knew we'd get the ball coming out. So we didn't want to press or get a turnover and let them get, back within a score. So, but I knew he was going to use his timeouts, and he did smartly, because he wanted to make us punt. He wanted to make us punt because we had shown the last 2 weeks we struggled to punt. So he called us timeout, and I thought, what can we run, just a tendency breaker out of this set, maybe to get a first down and get to the half. And we just ran a Q counter out of our power look, and Connor took it 76 yards. So we were content going in 16-6 and getting the ball coming out, but we went in 24-6 even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the pass down the sideline to Shane Smith. I thought, watching Connor play quarterback this year, I thought that was his most impressive throw, because I'll tell you what, for the Zaps, you could not cover anyone any better.
No.
I mean, Shane was just blanketed, and he got it just over, his outside shoulder where only he could make a play on it. I mean, it was great coverage, and Shane not only made the great catch, but was able to take it up the sideline.
Yeah.
And that was such a huge play.
We had to, we had two receivers out, and, we tell him to pick his matchup he likes, and they cheated the safety to Nick. They were playing safety help over Nick, so it left one-on-one with Shane. We tell our receivers make a play, and Shane made a play.
Yeah, and when you look at your offense, I thought the formation that you went to, that led to the 41 carries, 40 carries for Connor. I remember the great coach Bill Starr. And I remember one year he had what he called a buffalo formation.
I ran the ball.
You ran the ball,
Yeah.
and he loaded up. And I remember Coach Starr telling me he would go with the buffalo formation, and when the defense seen it, they knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. But if you didn't stop it, you know what was coming the next play?
Buffalo.
The buffalo.
Yeah.
And it was buffalo.
Yes.
And I tell you, I thought the Zaps made some adjustments at halftime. They wasn't getting gashed, but they could not stop you from moving the chain you know, in 3 or 4 downs. You was able to convert 3 out of 4, I think, on 4th down. And how nice of it when you went to, I believe it's the tank formation.
That's what we call it. Yeah.
And you know, you run it until you stop it, and it couldn't be stopped. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
No, we just, you know, we didn't have that in the game plan. The game plan wasn't to do that, but you know, we didn't know our offensive line would dominate like they did either. You know, I tell you, if your offensive line dominates like that, you'd be a fool to ever come out of that formation in that play. You know, we ran 3 or 4 plays out of that, and we did what we did. And you know, I even told Mr. Bates that I said, what do you think about 41 carries? I said, I could have done some other stuff. And he said, yeah. He said, if you would have lost the game, I'd have fired you. So, that's right. That's right. Thank you.
But you had said something that, and Tom, you just touched on just a second ago, but you were talking about that Dodge stop on 4th down. Talk, I guess, what a momentum, I guess, keeper, so to speak, it was the other night to be able to keep getting those big first downs on 4th down against a good Shenandoah defense.
Yeah, that we a couple times we had to spread them out to get it, but we still we liked our numbers. You know, we just counted numbers, and we liked our numbers. You know, we really just liked our offensive lines, our advantage there too, and you know, we felt like we could get, you know, if you get 3 yards every carry, it puts you at 4th and 1. We feel like we can get 3 yards again, you know, and get a first down. So that's all it was. You know, I don't know. It was just, you know, we wasn't going to be a bunch of big plays, but you know, if you can get 3 yards every time, take it.
Coach, can you shine the spotlight and you know, give your offensive linemen some love and mention them and the ones in the tank formation? Because on this show, we talk so much about the perimeter players and the ones that are touching the football. But you're right, it's the line of scrimmage where games are decided.
Yeah, Bryce Baker and Colton Shepard alternated at backside tackle. The left guard was Nick Burris. Center was Landon Coe. Right guard, Dakota Milliken. Right tackle, Liam Kelly. We would bring, Aiden Kreis in, and because Austin Payton went down, so Aiden Kreis, Aiden Snodgrass. You know, and that's what we did, and you know, that's kind of, you know, what we rode, and you know, it was very, very, you know, effective.
So let's talk about this defense. Heath mentioned that you guys did a great job converting on 4th down.
Wait, Cameron Hess. I knew I was missing one. Cameron's a starting lineman, but I was going back, and Cameron Hess was another one. Sorry.
No, you're good. So Heath brought up about how good you guys converted on 4th downs. You guys defensively did a good job in those late conversions, stopping Shenandoah. They were 1 of 7 on 3rd down, 1 of 4 on 4th down. So you guys really stepped up when you needed to in those clutch situations, like when Dodd made that big hit on 4th and inches. Just talk about how important those were, stopping those multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I was never comfortable that we would consistently, you know, stop them. In the 4th quarter, they showed that they could score, and they could score pretty fast. So I wasn't ever comfortable that, you know, that we could stop them. So every time we could stop them, that was huge for us. You know, when it was 4th, you know, I felt. That's a credit to the surge that our defensive line got. When Colton Shepard, Dakota, Nick, you know, Landon, Bryce Baker, Aiden Craig, that's just a credit to those guys. Cameron Hess, I mean, just a credit to all those guys. Just, you know, able to reestablish. We call it reestablish the line of scrimmage. So when we're on offense, we want to reestablish the line of scrimmage, you know, 2 or 3 yards ahead, and when we're on defense, we want to reestablish the line of scrimmage to 1 yard deep.
And Coach, give the Zaps a lot of credit, because like you said, you know, you get up, you know, a few scores. They kept, you know, answering and, you know, needing to stop. You know, they didn't get it, but, you know, they were close to getting a stop, getting the ball, score, and now it's a 1-score game. But you talk about your tank formation, everybody knows what's happening. How tough was it that you, and how many times did you have to hold your breath when they would go to their package and Portman's back there? Yeah. He's getting the snap. You know he's running it.
He's something.
But he is something. And your defense And Dean is tough, and Hill threw the ball well. They had some weapons themselves.
Yeah, they had really good weapons, and they're so well coached. You knew that they were going to do whatever they do and do it well. And that was my fear. Portman, he's probably one of the best players that we've seen all year. He's a physical runner. Kind of reminds me of the Hutchinson kid, of how he could just take a game over from Malvern. I mean, he's something else.
Yeah, and they had a heartbreaker the week before, like you. They lost 41-38, and to get back up and battle like they did was a credit to
absolutely
Coach Wells.
Their kids were definitely ready to play, and they played hard.
Well, let's go ahead and transition a little bit then into this week's game. You've got Caldwell, 5-3. They're coming over coming off a 22-19 win over Waterford. Their 3 losses. They lost 2 weeks ago in the playoffs to Eastern, so they were eliminated. But their only other 2 losses of the season was to Fort Fry. We all know in the district. They're one of the best teams in the Eastern District for sure. And then they also lost to the Zeps, which the Zeps are a good football team too. So talk to us a little bit about Caldwell.
They got a really, really good quarterback, and they're really good on the line of scrimmage. They have athletes. They are senior led. They have a bunch of seniors, and I guess it'll be a good test to see them week 10, and then turn around and see them week 1 next year. So
you're familiar with that fair game down there sometimes.
Yeah. So we have them week 10 and week 1. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I'm not blowing smoke. I think that they are playing pretty good football. I was at that Eastern game, and they lost the game. But I texted our coaches and I said, "I'm telling you, Caldwell is not bad. I mean, they play hard. They're good on the line of scrimmage too, and Dudley, the quarterback, he's something. He really is, and Caden Moore's a really good running back too.
Two Caden Moores in the area, huh?
And Coach, how crazy is it? If I'm correct, way back when we originally had a 10-game season, you were supposed to open up with Caldwell.
Yes.
And then you go to the 6, so you lose that game, and then lo and behold, things work back out. You get to play it, and again, an opportunity to battle another rivalry game.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to have trouble getting the guys excited for their last game of the season.
They're ready to go. Ready to go.
And like you said the community wants to play Barnesville, Shenandoah, and Caldwell. Well, they're getting their wish 2 of the last
they are.
Weeks of the season.
They really are. Those are big games for our community.
And before Train asks you a question, we want to say congratulations and good luck to Barnesville. If you were supposed to go to their place this Friday, but it's good for Barnesville you're not playing because they advanced in the playoffs. So good luck to the Rocks this week.
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel you and Caldwell kind of are a little bit similar in a way because they want to pound the football as well. But like you said, like you said, the Dudley, the sophomore QB, very solid player. I know they got a good running back in Marshall Sayre. They got some good weapons on the outside. Defensively and offensively, what's some keys for you guys for Friday night?
Defensively, our middle linebackers have to continue to play well. We have some linebackers who play really, really hard. Logan Hinkle, Aiden Snodgrass, Shane Smith, Noah Betts, Austin Payton. Those 5 kids, when they put on the shoulder pads, they just play hard. So we have to do that. We have to fly to the football. If we can do that, and our defensive line, like I said, reestablish the line of scrimmage, and our DBs fly to the football and come up and help in the run game, I think we'll be okay defensively. Offensively, we're going to come out and we're going to take advantage of what they give us. If they line up in the 50, we think we have some things that we can do. If they line up differently, we think they have some things that they can do. So that we can do. So I mean, depending on what defense they play against us, will dictate how we approach this game offensively.
And Coach, was this one of the better games your secondary had played? Shenandoah had some weapons. I thought Brendan and Blake Bates. I thought their coverage on the outside really allowed Pushkarich and Nick Newhart to come up and help support the run and really open things up defensively.
Yeah, they played well. They really did. I would like to see the secondary tackle a little bit better. I didn't think they tackled well, and I think they know that from the film. The Portman touchdown, late in the game in the fourth quarter, all we had to do was, breathe on him, and he would get knocked out of bounds. But nobody wanted to come up and head him. It was, that was frustrating. But yeah, they played well.
Heath, your typical head coach, big win. You got to throw the film up and point out things you can get better in. Come on.
That's why Donnie's one of the best in the business.
But all right, well, Coach, hey, we want to thank you so much for coming up and once again, and
I appreciate all you guys do.
Hey, thank you, and great big win, team win last week, and you got one tomorrow night against the Redskins. It ought to be a lot of fun. You can see that game on KGP TV once again. And as you head out, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, was last weekend a little bit different? You get to play on Friday night, a big win, and then you got to, stretch out on the couch Saturday at noon and watch your Buckeyes for the first time. Was the weekend a little bit different than the others?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. There's nothing better than getting Buckeye football on a Saturday afternoon after a big win, man. I tell you, that's like the thing. My girls know if we win and the Buckeyes win, Dad's in a really good mood.
I didn't know if you were down the road at I didn't know if you were just down the way at Martha Drive, because I could hear some cheering going on down the street. So I don't know if you were at Dad's or not. So.
No, I wasn't up there, but
okay.
Mom and Dad are they're about as crazy as we are.
Well, I heard some cheering at mid-Saturday afternoon.
You think their game will be competitive Saturday night?
Nope. I think the Buckeyes are too athletic, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, and I hate to take that approach, but I truly think Ohio State is too athletic.
Well, don't worry if it's close. We'll try to go back and edit this.
Right.
We'll edit this part, okay?
Because I should never take that approach. But if it was one of my teams, I would say it would be close. But since I'm not the coach, I'm going to be honest with you. I just think Ohio State's really athletic.
What's that? My phone's ringing. Yeah, what, Coach Day?
Yeah.
But again, we want to thank Coach Donnie Kearns and congratulate him on the season they've had, and good luck. It'll be a lot of fun tomorrow night as the Caldwell Redskins and Buckeye Trail Warriors hook up as they should. Nice ring to that. So, Coach, thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us here on the KGP Pre-Game Show. And when we come back, we're going to talk some Cambridge Bobcat football, look back at their game against Marietta, and look ahead to their game tomorrow night against Johnstown Monroe. It ought to be a good one. We'll be back here at the KGP Studios in Cambridge after this timeout. Welcome back to the KGP Studios here in beautiful downtown Cambridge for this week's edition of the KGP Pre-Game Show. I'm merely Tom Strasser, Heath Dawson, and D-Train Darren McCullough once again joining you this week. And we just listened to Donnie Kearns, and it's always a lot of fun to talk to our local coaches. And we big announcement, we plan on having Coach Kohler Clendenning of the Meadowbrook Colts on next week's show. So be sure to tune in for that. But fellas, we're now going to turn our attention to the Cambridge Bobcats. And they traveled to Marietta, and it turned out to be a tough night for Big Blue.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, one of the things that I always look at Cambridge, how did they do with the run defense? People haven't been able to run on Cambridge that much. And when you look at what Reese Gerber and Zach Bartlett were able to do, and Tony Munoz, those guys, the offense of Marietta, I mean, they had some weapons, which really surprised me, because I honestly felt like Cambridge was going to get a victory there. So when I saw the score the other night, I dove into the box score and had to look at, it really shocked me. But that just tells you how good Marietta really was. And I mean, maybe some people were sleeping on them, but yeah, I mean, when you look at what the Marietta offense was able to do, Reese Gerber, 342 yards passing, Munoz 209 receiving, Bartlett 69 rushing. I mean, they put up a lot of offense, and that really surprised me against Cambridge's good defense.
I think the big thing that hurt the Bobcats was the turnovers. That's kind of been the bugaboo for them in their losses, and they 3 turnovers, minus 3 turnover differential. That kind of puts you in a hole. There was 6, I think, even the week before. So,
Yeah, and when you look at Cambridge, a couple of tough weeks, but fellas, it shouldn't take away from what they've accomplished so far, and still a game ahead. But Cambridge, and I think you guys have touched on it, the turnovers. When they have limited them, they've performed well. But when they've turned it over, their opponents have been able to cash in. And when they get behind the 8 ball, now you become one-dimensional. And all of a sudden that pass rush, all of a sudden gets a lot better when they know you have to throw the football.
And that's what happened the other night. Marietta comes out to a 21-7 lead, with Cambridge being on the road. And let's face it, Cambridge has been banged up, as the second half of the season's kind of worn. They've been without Mo Bellini for a while. They've been without their quarterback, Caden Moore. So, I mean, you're banged up. You're coming to a game. You just come off a heartbreaking loss, heartbreaking because you're out of the playoffs, of course. Yeah. But, going down there, getting down 21-7 wasn't probably what Coach Leak and his staff was hoping for. But the turnovers, that's just, like you said, Tom and Train, that's been their bugaboo. And the thing that, I think moving forward, Coach Leak, they have one more game to work that out. And I'm sure in the offseason, that's going to be something they work on.
And getting off that fast start's always been a big key for them, too.
Right.
If they start the game good, they can play the whole 48 minutes, it seems like. But when they kind of have some rough stretches at the beginning, it kind of gets to them a little bit. And obviously, like you said, down 21-7, kind of losing a little confidence and kind of maybe force some throws into some windows that aren't there.
And to their credit, though, they did rally and get within a score, going into that fourth quarter. So, Cambridge was still, even though they had the turnovers and kind of got down to, behind the 8 ball early, 2-score deficit, credit to Coach Leak and his kids because they did rally and put up an effort in the comeback bid, but it just, fell a little bit short.
And still some nice offensive performances for the Cats.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Caden Moore back again and 214 yards through the air. This was another stat. And I can't remember, even going back to even the Sean Maley days, that's a name pulling out of the air, when Coach Goody was there. But Caden Moore, 45 passing attempts. It's been a long time since you've seen that many aerials from the Cambridge offense. But 19 of 45, he had 214 yards. Then on the ground, he had 2 TDs. But Caden Kenworthy, let's give him some credit because Caden's kind of been one of those guys that's kind of been more in the background, but he still had a good season. But 8 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown the other night. So I was happy to see Caden have a big game for the Bobcats on the offensive side.
He did it on the defensive end, too. 9.5 tackles, 9 solo, 1 tackle for loss. So he was all over the field for him. I mean, there was definitely a lot of individual efforts. Like Brumfield had 8 tackles, 8 solo. Bartlett, again, puts up 7 tackles, 7 solo. Bo Stottsbury, 6 tackles, 6 solo. So,
Bartlett, you almost could just...
Bartlett, it's like a
race and maybe add a tackle this week. That guy's been a mainstay
consistency.
For them, so, Mr. Consistent for sure. But yeah, they had some good offensive performances this past week, as you asked, Tom. So I mean, they got one more week to do it this week. So I mean, it'd be exciting to see what they can do in their season finale.
Yeah, and fellas, they're back at home, McFarland Stadium. That'll be good. The last time they were there, they got a big Bobcats got a big playoff victory. So you come back home to close out the season. And guys, the one thing Cambridge, you got to give them credit. They haven't dodged anyone.
No.
And I tell you what, I think I'd rather I could pick a lot of other teams to end my season with, but in comes the Johnnies of Johnstown Monroe, a playoff perennial power over the last few years. And Cambridge will have their hands full, but once again, it's not going to be anything that they haven't already seen this year.
Right. I mean, you look at who they just played last week, Ironton. Ironton is one of probably the premier football programs in Ohio when you start thinking, especially down along the river, down there at the West Virginia border, just across from Huntington. But Ironton's always been a powerhouse program. They're coming off the Ironton last week, 42-0. Earlier this year, they played Granville, lost to Granville. So, I mean, Johnstown's schedule has been, it's had some doozies on that schedule. So just like Cambridge, I guess they can probably talk about Coach Leak and Johnny's head coach about their rough schedules that they've had this year. But, Johnstown, they're coming into this game, and, they're going to want to get a victory. They're 3-6. Both teams are looking at finishing that season off. Yeah, it may not be the playoffs. And for Cambridge, obviously, heartbreaking. I'm sure the Cambridge fans were rooting for Meadowbrook because that's one thing I notice in this area most people talk about. When a local team gets hot and starts going down that tourney trail, I can always remember Gene Ford and the Bobcats on the hardwood going far, and it just seemed like Meadowbrook and Trail and John Glenn people, and Trey, you coaching at John Glenn, you can remember people come and support you, Trail, your girls, when you coach the girls. I mean, it just seems like people always root for that. So I know deep down though, Cambridge people are heartbroken that they don't get to play Meadowbrook in week 10, but they still have something to play for. Finishing that season, having to wait a long off season to play again after a loss, and that's never a good feeling. So I know Cambridge is going to be looking at Johnstown, a good opponent, nonetheless 3-6, and I think Cambridge is going to be hyped to play this game.
And trained to build off what Heath said. This week right here, you look, you ought to be thankful that that you've got a chance in week 10 to still play football. You got an opportunity to participate in the playoffs. You got a playoff win, and for the seniors, for the Bobcats, and the vast majority of the seniors across the state of Ohio, this is going to be the last time you have a chance to put the helmet on. This will be the last time you participate in a football game. So for the underclassmen. And then everybody should be laying it on the line tomorrow night and a chance to end your season on a win.
And I want to correct myself. They're 6-3, so my bad. I read my writing wrong, so that's my bad on that one. So, 6-3. So go ahead.
Well, and their other loss, though, was to the battling Dawsons of Heath. The Heath Bulldogs. So, and a familiar opponent for Cambridge. So
28-21
Yeah, so they both have a familiar opponent there. And like you said, Tommy, in July, you could flip a coin whether we were going to play or not. It seemed like one day we had to go ahead, we were going to get a play. The next day, it didn't look too promising. Next day, well, maybe we're going to play and like you said, those young kids, these seniors are the leaders of that team. And you got to look up to them as the leaders of the team and listen, this dude's here. He's busting his tail, play in, play out. Yeah, he's not going to be playing anymore. I want to play hard for him. I want him to go out with a W. And I hope that's what how many ever kids is on that Cambridge roster is thinking to play for those seniors, because those guys have put in 4 years of work, and they've done some stuff that Cambridge hasn't done in a while. They got a playoff win that they haven't done since 2006. So they hosted a playoff game. There's things that this senior group did that a lot of people can't take away. They had to go through the obstacle of COVID. Nobody has went through that before. They've had to get a new coach about as late as possible.
Right.
And that's the thing. They're 4-5 right now, Cambridge is. And you've got to give a ton of credit to Coach Leak and his coaching staff for how late they've started everything. I know everybody's had the obstacles with COVID, but he had to implement everything. You threw a lot at these kids at the last get control of everything, get focused, and for what they accomplished, I know 4-5, people think, well, that's not that good, but for for all the obstacles they went through on the field and off the field, you've got to give that team a lot of credit.
And let's not forget they had a huge win against Belair this year, which Cambridge hasn't beaten Belair for a while. So getting that win was a huge
undefeated Belair at the time.
Right? Yeah.
State ranked? They were 7th in the state.
7th in the state. And when you look at what Cambridge faced, New Philly 7-1, Lima Central Catholic 6-1, Belair 5-3, Carrollton 6-3, Heath 7-2, Johnstown Monroe Monroe 6-3, Shenandoah 4-4. That's a lot of good football teams on that schedule.
The worst record's 4-4. Look at that opponent's record. That's pretty amazing.
They've had a lot of tough outs on that schedule this year for sure.
Yeah, a tough schedule and everything you guys mentioned, but nothing, no team had to deal, personally with the tragic loss of Matthew Binkiewicz. So dealing with that is the toughest of all. But as we get ready to head to break, before we thank our sponsors, when we talk about the people, lacing up the cleats for the last time, do not forget the class of 2020, the seniors who were getting ready to play baseball and softball and run track for their last time, and they did not have an opportunity. So if you're out there and you've got an opportunity to finish your football season, be thankful and lay it on the line tomorrow night, which I'm sure everybody will. And once again, we want to thank our sponsors tonight: Buffalo Wild Wings, Cons, Simple Windows and Doors, Muskingum Valley Health Centers, John Valentine Insurance Agency, Basic Systems, for sponsoring tonight's KGP Pre-Game Show. And that's our Cambridge Bobcat segment. And when we come back, we'll look down at Byesville at the still undefeated, your 2020 MVL champions. And now they're in the Final Four in Division 4, Region 15, and their big showdown against the number 1 seed St. Clairsville Red Devils. Yes, that would be the Meadowbrook Colts after this timeout. And once again, thanks for joining us here on the KGP Pre-Game Show. Welcome back to the KGP studios for this week's edition of the KGP Pre-Game Show. We've talked a little Buckeye Trail football with head coach Donnie Kearns. We talked Bobcat football, and now let's talk the Meadowbrook Colts. As when you look at Division 4, Region 15, the top 4 seeds, chalk has held serve. So you got the top 4 teams still alive. It's the semifinals, and Meadowbrook with a big win last week at home, which technically wraps up their home season. And a big one over Gallia Academy. And fellas, Meadowbrook jumped out 14-0 in the first half, and then the second quarter, both teams combined for 48 points. Wow. You were there on KGP TV. What happened?
Train, I'll allude to you. Go ahead.
Well, it was an offensive explosion where Heath and I were signaling down to the sideline for a timeout just because we had to catch up, keeping track of the stats and different information on the game. I mean, it was big play after big play, talking about a big kick return for Meadowbrook. Then Gallia Academy would follow right back. I mean, their running back, we talked about him, big game James Armstrong. He was as good as advertised. I think he finished with 180 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. I mean, the kid was a beast to take down. And Meadowbrook, I think on one play, his 1 touchdown run, all 11 defenders for Meadowbrook touched him, and he still found a way to get away for a touchdown. I mean, Singleton was on point, hitting Todd early. He hit McMahon away. He hit McCulley. He hit Eubanks. I mean, it was just spreading the love all around. The passing game was just on point the whole game, and how it's been most of the year. I mean, just all cylinders were firing. And then on the unfortunate side for Meadowbrook and the fortunate side for Gallia, they get that 70-yard touchdown pass right before the end of the half, just to kind of show another touchdown there at the end to just add to the crazy point total in that quarter.
And Heath, when you look, you guys have pointed out the explosiveness of the Blue Devils scoring 20 points in the second quarter. Let's look back at the first quarter. After one, they're down 14-0. How big was it for Meadowbrook to not only score first, but get up 2 scores and pitch a shutout in the first quarter. How did they do that against an explosive offense?
Well, the biggest thing was Meadowbrook comes out, that onside kick was massive. They come out and shock everybody with that. And then, one of the biggest things was, honestly, Meadowbrook's defense stepped up. Rhett Dyer had a huge pass breakup. But then, remember, Train, Gallia had a wide open touchdown, and they ended up dropped a short TD. So Meadowbrook kind of dodged the bullet early on, and then they were able to put together a long touchdown drive there of 63 yards, and then scored. So that's kind of how they kind of dodged the bullet early. But there was a lot going back and forth. But what I will give Meadowbrook a massive shout out and credit was, when you look at the final score, fireworks all night long. But once again, just like I said last week, and the win over Philo, there was a series that I thought won Meadowbrook the football game. And after Meadowbrook went up 28-12, Gallia gets the ball back. They had showed something a little bit, some signs of life that they're starting to roll. Well, Gallia gets the ball back. They had scored an 80-yard touchdown. Meadowbrook answers. So now after they were 22-12, Meadowbrook goes up 28-12. Gallia gets the football, and they get to a 4th down play, and they call a punt. Meadowbrook is able to thwart that fake punt. They stop that. They get the ball back. They march down, and they score again. So that sequence to me was huge. Philo gets the ball back, and then on 1st down, Rhett Dyer again has a massive sack to put Gallia kind of in a long situation. They get down to 3rd down, and Meadowbrook, Anthony Schwartz, I believe it was, had a huge interception.
Yes.
So, there's Meadowbrook defense again. We talk about their offense, but when Gallia is just nipping at their heels all game, especially that early going, I thought Meadowbrook's defense on those 2 back-to-back series was huge, because then Meadowbrook goes and scores again, and then scores again, and it's 42-12. If Gallia has the football there and is able to answer, I feel like maybe it's a different football game. You could hear the coaches pounding on that desk next to us, the Gallia guys, because they felt like a couple different times. When they missed that touchdown early on, and then Penn must have had 6 or 7.
Yeah, there was at least 6 personal fouls.
So that was mounting against them. But credit to Meadowbrook's defense. We want to talk about their offense, and we'll get into what a lot of their players did. But their defense, it just seems like when Meadowbrook needs to get a stop. Yeah, they may not be the most statistical defense we've ever seen, but you know what? They've got some good players on that defense, and when they need them, it just seems like they step up at the right time.
They know when to make the right play at the right time.
Right. So that's kind of where I felt, Tom, the difference was in that game.
Yeah, and again, Meadowbrook wins 58-40. If it was 58-26, and had the game put away, and the Blue Devils get 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, which is, it's already over. And the defense, again, dominant performance. And I guess it tells you, Train, they dropped a touchdown. I still don't think they win the football game early, but it just shows Meadowbrook, if you have an opportunity to cash in, you better, because Meadowbrook's not going to give you another opportunity like that.
Yeah, and that second half, like you said, they outscored them 14-0 in the 4th quarter. A lot of that, Meadowbrook was down in the red zone, and they just constantly just ran the ball. They just wanted to get that clock moving.
Right.
It was time to get on, get the game over with, and then go on to which they expected St. Clairsville. But defensively, the one kid I want to give a lot of credit to is Josh Hupp. He had 7 tackles. They had 2 defensive starters out with injuries Saturday night. He stepped up and played multiple different positions for Meadowbrook.
He had a big game.
And he came up with a lot of big plays, some pass breaks up, some huge hits in the backfield. He definitely made his on that wheel route to Armstrong, where he stayed stride for stride with him and deflected. I think that might have been even on a 4th down. So he made a lot of big plays that kind of stood out during the game.
It felt like to me, Hupp, and then Rhett Dyer a few different times. It felt like those 2 guys especially, shined, on defensive side. So.
And guys, okay, Meadowbrook, and they did put up 58 points. And again, let's start with one Davis Singleton, over 200 50 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing. Just another average night for the man.
Yeah, and Darren and I, oddly enough, talked about that on the air. That it just, you felt like it was one of those games. You're like, well, it just don't seem like a Davis game. And then you start looking at the stats. You start looking at all his touchdowns he's throwing, and it's like, dear Lord, this guy's quiet games are bigger than most guys' seasons. You know what I mean? And it's like, Davis. Coach Kearns, we talked to him a little bit off air, and Coach Kearns made mention about it. He said, man, he goes, I thought he was good, but I didn't know he was that good.
Yeah.
And he said, that kid's arm is amazing. And then I was talking to Coach Kearns about, Davis's ability to look around and read, defenses and go through his progressions. That's what's impressed me the most about him. He don't lock on a receiver. He waits. Got that big offensive line of Meadowbrook. I mean, they've got a great line. So, I feel like that, he has just improved so much. I mean, from last year to this year, to me, it's not even the same player. I mean, he just keeps getting better and better and better.
And Coach Kearns, all fair, was talking about how much fun Meadowbrook was to watch. Mm-hmm. He talked about Singleton's, quote, laser arm. But I tell you what, you can have a laser arm, but if you're not accurate, that's the most important thing for a quarterback. And again, 21 of 27, 77% completion. And he's not dinking and dunking. I mean, his accuracy, it's just been, I think that's been the most impressive thing that I've seen out of this kid this year. And I've seen a lot of impressive things.
He put one to Jerome over the top. Galia was mugging Jerome. Is the same thing we talked about push carriage, making that touch pass to Shane. It was the same thing to Jerome. I mean, his touch is amazing. But, his QBR rating has to be sky high. And as Train always says, the high school fantasy football, if you've got him on your team, you're winning a lot of games.
We coined the new term, basketball has the triple-double.
Right.
Well, Singleton's putting up a double-triple every week.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
He's getting the 100-plus passing and 100-plus rushing.
Week.
So 251 yards passing, 6 touchdown passes, 3 to McManaway, 2 to Todd, 1 to McCullough, and then Hunter Eubanks. Yeah, he didn't have a touchdown, but still 6 catches, 64 yards. So you're talking 4 guys putting up relevant numbers in the offense, just impressive. Then he had 120 yards rushing in a touchdown run. So, again, just all around, so many weapons. You, as a defensive coordinator, you just, who do we stop? I mean, we saw Philo stop the deep pass. Well, Brady McManaway took advantage of that. I mean, Gallia, they were worried more about the running game. They saw how Schwartz and Lacey and Singleton were so dangerous in the running game. They loaded up the box a little bit. Guess what? That left over the top to Todd. He hit that. I mean, they're going to take what the defense gives you, and right now, Meadowbrook is just clicking on whatever you do, it's not good enough.
And they tried to stop the run, but let's not forget they still had about 175 yards of rushing. So teams just right now, I mean, like everybody pretty much who sees Meadowbrook this year, it's like, wow, that offense. We see their scores, but until you see it in person, it's a whole different animal, because that offense is one of the best offenses high school in this area that I've seen in a long time.
And guys, the Blue Devils, I don't know what game film they watched on Meadowbrook, but I can guess it was the games where teams were saying, hey, Jerome Todd's not going to beat us over top. We're going to take that, and then that's the games that Eubanks and McManaway burned them, underneath, and McCall. Well, they decided to do that, and they opened the top for Jerome Todd, 7 catches, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That had to feel real good for him.
Yeah, because he there for a few weeks he had been kind of quiet, but again, when teams are doubling him that way and sometimes tripling him, he's watching his teammates, get the rock and excel, and that's a good teammate right there, because you never hear him complaining. And that's what I like about Meadowbrook. None of them really are just give me the ball. And Lacey's had a quiet last couple weeks, but there he gets a goal line touchdown. Nobody's over there sulking about it or anything. I like right now, I feel like Meadowbrook is putting team first instead of me first. And I mean, you have to have guys like that. And when you have I mean, let's face it, they have a lot of mouths to feed down there when you've got Todd and Eubanks and McManaway and Jonah and Lacey and Schwartz and then Singleton trying to run. There's a lot of weapons that they've got, but, it goes back to what Coach Kern says about their offensive line at Trail. Meadowbrook's offensive line, I mean, you cannot give their offensive line enough credit because honestly, Singleton has sometimes all day to stand back here. And Singleton's great, don't get me wrong, but that offensive line is, to me, what makes that entire team go because that line is good and they pass protect well, they run block well, they get downfield and make blocks, whether they're pulling or whatever. Meadowbrook's line is really good. They impress me.
And you also got to give those wide receivers credit. You like how they kind of are unselfish. Well, look at those screen passes and those receivers who don't. They're down the field blocking 20, 30, 40 yards down the field, some of them, trying to pop that person loose for a touchdown. So that's just, like you said, the unselfishness of them.
They celebrate together and stuff. I mean, like Brady last week, they mugged him a couple different times. And that's exciting to see because, they're right now, Meadowbrook is just firing on all cylinders. And I think what the neat thing I'm seeing, at least, it feels like to me that Coach Clendenning has a team. You know what I mean? So, it's impressive to watch them play. I've seen them, 4 or 5 times this year, and, each time it just, you think you can't be any more impressed, and they seem to somehow impress you even more.
Yeah, every coach, regardless what sport, you want to be playing your best at the end of the season. And right now, nobody, and I mean nobody, is playing better than the Meadowbrook Colts are, and they will advance and move on the Saturday night on the road to take on the St. Clairsville Red Devils. These two teams have met in the regular season over the past few seasons, and St. Clairsville has always seemed to come out on top in high-scoring games. I tell you what, Meadowbrook, it very well may be their turn to get the dub over the Red Devils. It ought to be a heck of a football game, but Meadowbrook's got to be extremely confident going in.
Yeah, and one thing we're sure of, somebody's leaving with an unblemished record, and one of them's getting their first loss of the season.
Yeah, somebody's
they're both undefeated. If for folks at home, you're wanting to know how St. Clairsville got there, 26-0 over Warren last week, and then in the opener, 47-30 over Highlands. So that's their St. Clairsville's 2 wins. But one of the things I look at is if Meadowbrook's going to win, we can talk about their offense and how good their defense is, but they've done 2 things well. They've protected the football, no turnovers against Gallia last week, and the penalties. Early on, they were having 9 to 12, 13 penalties a game. Last week, I only had them for 2. So they are really doing a lot better job of playing disciplined football and holding on to the football. And if they're going to beat St. Clairsville, they better do both of those things on Saturday night.
Yeah, they're definitely going to do that. Like you mentioned, the 26-0 over Warren. Warren likes to spread it out and sling it. So St. Clairsville's got a pretty good defense. They have 21 sacks on the year as a team, and they recorded 7 of them last week against Warren. So I'm sure that the offensive Meadowbrook's scheming some things up. You know how they've kind of, against Philo, they've got out of the pocket to kind of give him some more time. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of looks like that that's going to hopefully give him a little more time and maybe get the edge or set the edge against the Red Devils.
Oh, you love watching those showdowns. A team that can get after the quarterback and a team that can protect. The strength versus strength, 2 great teams. It ought to be a lot of fun Saturday night as Meadowbrook will travel down 70 East and take on the Red Devils. Good luck to Meadowbrook. It ought to be a lot of fun. So I tell you what, guys, it's been a enjoyable show. We got one more segment to go, and that's to give out some awards from Week 9. Our John Valentine Insurance Agency Defensive Player of the Week, and our Buffalo Wild Wings KGP Player of the Week, and we will give those out after this timeout here on the KGP Pre-Game Show. Welcome back to the KGP studios here in beautiful downtown Cambridge, Ohio. It's our last segment of the show here on the KGP Pre-Game Show, where we look back at Week 9 and give out some individual awards. And once again, we had a lot of extremely individual efforts to pick from. And the first thing we're going to look at is thank our fine sponsors: Buffalo Wild Wings, Cons, Simple Windows and Doors, Muskingum Valley Health Center, John Valentine Insurance Agency, and Basic Systems for sponsoring our show not only this week but throughout the season. And it's now the time to look at the John Valentine Insurance Agency Defensive Player of the Week, Heath. And again, we had a lot of nominees.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look over at Trail and a big win over Shenandoah. I mean, Connor Pushkarich, we talked about him offensively, but he also had a huge defensive night. His teammate Brendan Bates had a good night. Both of those guys, 5.5 tackles, and Bates had an interception. So nice job by those fellas in the win. And then you look down at Meadowbrook. Train alluded to Josh Hupp's amazing performance. He played great the other night. And just Meadowbrook's defense at different times. You know, there's different guys. We mentioned Rhett Dyer. You know, Brady McManaway had a solid game. So a couple guys there. Over at Cambridge, you had Blake Brumfield and Justin Bartlett. We mentioned those guys, but we're going to go with their teammate and Kenworthy. Caden Kenworthy, you know, we mentioned he had 81 yards and a touchdown on 8 receptions, but on the defensive side, that's where we're giving it to him. 9.5 tackles, 9 of those solos, and a tackle for a loss, and an effort the other night. So good job to Mr. Kenworthy.
Yeah, so congratulations to Caden Kenworthy. He is our Week 9 John Valentine Insurance Agency Defensive Player of the Week. And now, Train, it's now time to give out our Buffalo Wild Wings KGP Player of the Week for Week 9.
And obviously, like he said, on defense, offensively, all kinds of people we could pick up. Go with Caden Moore, Cambridge, 3 for 214 yards, 42 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. I mean, let me borrow one of you guys' hat, and I could pick a name out of the hat at Meadowbrook because it seemed like everybody did something great. You got McManaway, 4 catches, 38 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jerome Todd, 7 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Davis Singleton, 251 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, 120 yards rushing, and 1 touchdown. I mean, yeah, Singleton played a great game, but, man, we just had to go with Connor Pushkarich from Buckeye Trail, especially for the things that he's done the past. Last week, you're talking about a playoff game against Afrocentric and then a rivalry game against Shenandoah. You have to go with him. 81 carries, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns the past 2 weeks. There's a lot of players that would absolutely love to have a full season. And he did that within 6 days, like you mentioned, Tommy, playing the Saturday night playoff game and then coming back on the Friday night game. Against Shenandoah, 40 carries, 271 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. 5 of 9 passing, 109 yards, and a touchdown pass. So just an amazing 6 days for that young man. And I'm sure he was a little sore the day after, but I guarantee he played great in practice all week for Coach Kearns, and he's probably ready to carry it 60, 70, 100 times, whatever it takes against the Redskins.
Yeah, I've been, and it's great for him to get it. He's been knocking on the door a few times, and like you said, any one of the nominees definitely worthy of it. But this week, for Week 9, our Buffalo Wild Wings KGP Player of the Week goes to Connor Pushkarich of the Buckeye Trail Warriors. And Connor, congratulations for that. You'll receive a $25 gift certificate from Buffalo Wild Wings. I'll get it to you sometime, don't worry, as well as our trophy for your exploits. And once again, as we head on out, we want to wish the Buckeye Trail Warriors best of luck, as tomorrow night on KGP TV, you can tune in and watch them battle the Caldwell Redskins as the Cambridge Bobcats. Also tomorrow night, we'll close out the regular season at home against the Johnnies of Johnstown Monroe. That ought to be a good one. And then best of luck to the Meadowbrook Colts as they travel to St. Clairsville to take on the undefeated and #1 seed St. Clairsville Red Devils. Battle of the Unbeatens, Meadowbrook and St. Clairsville, Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And then next week, good Lord willing, we'll have head coach Kohler Clendenning up to talk about that game. And it ought to be a lot of fun. So, on behalf of the KGP family, we want to thank you for tuning in to the pregame show this week.
You can count on,
You stay classy,
you
Guernsey
can
County.
count on me meeting you in the press box.
Thanks for joining us here on the KGP Pre-Game Show, and we'll see you next week.